all you need, literally. What I used to love about it was all you need is like an old t-shirt, some shorts, and some good shoes. So not old shoes, but the rest of it can be old. You don't need anything fancy.
Attitudes, they have standards, and they have boundaries. This quote sums up exactly what I want to say about our next guest on Trifantry Chronicles episode 2, Natasha Poole from Australia. She's a pro athlete in Ironman, and she is competing for New Zealand, and she stays in Australia. Without further ado, let me welcome you, Natasha. Natasha, welcome to the show. Thank you for agreeing to do this.
Thanks, Nishant. Thanks for having me on the show. It's great to spread the word about women in sport and hopefully inspire some other women, especially in India, to take up triathlon and running, swimming, or cycling, or just walking and living a healthier lifestyle.
That is awesome. That's exactly what we're going to be discussing today. We want to inspire at least a few women who might listen to this to take up endurance sport like triathlons or marathons or endurance swimming, and we also want to motivate men in the community to encourage the women around them to get into sport and change their lives. Guys, the story of Natasha is quite peculiar. She's actually been moving across the world. She has parents from different countries. She started out from the UK. Her mother is an Indian and her father is from New Zealand, but she currently resides in Australia. Natasha, would you be kind enough to tell a little bit about your background and how you got into the sport?
Sure. So I grew up in England, fairly traditional upbringing and education. Played a lot of team sports at school. Didn't really specialize in anything, but sort of kept things fairly open. Then went to university, again in England, and took up cross-country running and just really got involved with the club there and met some great people and decided, okay, this is something I'd really like to pursue. And had a couple of running injuries while at university and ended up getting an old bike, riding around, and did my first triathlon. And at this point, I couldn't actually swim, so I could just do breaststroke. But I thought, well, I better teach myself to do a bit of front crawl. And then finished university and decided, okay, well, I'll give this triathlon thing a go. And I moved to New Zealand, joined a club out there, did a bit more swimming and a bit more training, and then started racing. And then a couple of years ago, I moved to Australia, and here is just like the perfect climate and environment to live and train and work as well. And pursue the career and goal of being a triathlete.
Wow, that's somewhat, I would say, offbeat, and also quite similar to our other guests that we've had on Trifantry Chronicles. People who are pursuing goals of endurance athletes who are endurance sports, and also pursuing a life which is other than just the sports, but making offbeat choices consistently. And I can see how you've moved halfway across the world to do this. Was this something that you always wanted to do, or this is something that just occurred to you that this is exciting, let me just go for it?
Well, I think when I was at school, I didn't even know what triathlon was.
Like when were you in school, and when did you start your studies?
Sorry, I didn't hear the first part of that question.
When you say that you were in school, like when were you in high school? Which year?
Oh, yes. So when I was in high school, I don't think I even knew what triathlon was. We just played tennis, a bit of hockey, did a bit of running, but nothing structured. I wouldn't call it training like I train now in any shape or form. Just everything was just for fun. So when I went to university, I really realized, I guess, what sport was at that next level, and that I might be able to participate in it. And I met some great people and was fortunate enough to train with some amazing athletes who really inspired me.
Nice. And so, when did you decide that you wanted to go pro, and what was the process like transitioning from an amateur to a pro?
Well, I guess it's not necessarily like a linear process, and different countries will have different systems, but ultimately it's just the category that you race in. And I did, when I first started triathlon in New Zealand, I did quite a few age group races in my first couple of years. And at the time, because I was from a running background, my running times were generally, in the top 3 in most races out of everyone, and swimming was always a bit behind, but I'd usually catch people by the end of the race on the run at any rate. But and biking, that's something which I was working on too. So I sort of knew that I can do the age group racing and come in sort of fairly high. So I really wanted to test myself and almost throw myself in at the deep end and be pushed by racing against people who are some of the best in the sport.
Just to set the context, what are your run timings for a 10K and a 21K, and maybe a 40 that race?
I guess run times off the bike. Haven't done any Olympic races recently, but top run times would be around 38 minutes for 10K, and then 5K PB is high 17, and that was again off the bike. I haven't done any half Ironmans, so I can't tell you what my half marathon PB would be, but before I left England, actually I did do a half marathon series, which was a fell running series. So it was up and down some of the most beautiful coastal mountain landscapes in England, and I did actually win 2 of those and came second in 1. So I quite enjoyed that, but obviously the times for those were quite slow because they were literally running up and down cliffs. And but they were really beautiful and really, really fun to do. Yeah.
So your primary sport is Olympic Distance Triathlon, right?
The primary distance. Yeah, so its primary distances would be sprint or Olympic.
Sure. And have you dabbled into longer distances as well?
No, the longest, I haven't done a half Ironman or an Ironman like yourself. Who's probably more of an expert in that field than I am. But I have done, the longest race I've done was a race in America, which was the Santa Barbara Long Course Triathlon. And that was an unusual distance. It was a mile swim, so it's 1,600 meter swim, and then a 55-mile bike, which is around 80-something kilometers. And then it was a 10-mile run, which is 16 kilometers. So it was kind of in between half Ironman and Olympic distance.
Sure. So I think the Achilles heels in any triathlon distance usually for people is either swimming or running. And if you're a decent swimmer, then you can get through because you are fresh out of the race and you just getting ready for the race. But how do you manage running, and how do you excel on the running part of it? How can people learn from you is what I mean to say.
Well, I think the key with running is to stay injury free. I've had a few years, my PBs in running have been from, probably 3 to 5 years ago. Those were when I was running some of my best times, because I've had a few injuries since then. So I think the key is to, if anything, slightly undertrain so that you're not putting yourself at risk of injury, because then you can start compensating and it becomes quite hard to build up from there. But if you can keep ticking along at a good rate with a couple of speed sessions in or varied pace runs, then you'll just maintain a massive base and platform off which you should be able to race well with a bit of sharpening up as such.
Sure, that makes sense. I think it's super important to mix up the kind of training sessions that you have and not just try and go for PBs each session out there. There are people who try to do PBs every week, and that is a recipe for disaster. What do you?
Yes, definitely. So don't do that if you're listening. You don't run a PB every day, every week. Save it for a race when it matters, when it counts.
Yeah, as a pro athlete, like you might be planning your season way ahead, right? At least 4 to 6 months out, or maybe 8 months out. How does that planning look like? And when do you think that you have to put in the key sessions, endurance sessions, anaerobic sessions, and explosive sessions? And when do you expect to peak?
Well, I guess you'd hope to peak around the time of the race. But ultimately, I think it's important to keep all systems in check at any point in time, so that you're not suddenly having to reactivate a system or like biomechanic pattern that the body needs to get used to again. So it's important to dabble in a bit of everything so that you're resilient and adaptable throughout the year, but then at certain times you're going to be placing more emphasis on some things than other things, and ultimately with that it's always important. That's going to be different for every athlete, so it's always important to be aware of what your weaknesses are and make sure that you really concentrate on those as well as work to your strengths. So what one athlete's preparation is going to be completely different to another athlete's preparation. But I think it's really important for people to find a good coach in the sport, actually, because you don't have the same perspective when it comes to yourself, and there's a lot of amazing coaches out there, so it's really important to get some professional advice on that one.
Yeah, you've touched upon a very important topic for triathlons and marathons, which is coaching. Because coaching, I've seen that even I have worked with coaches. I've worked with really wonderful coaches who helped me through the journey. As an individual, when you are training, you think that you're doing well, but probably you're training too hard or you're not training enough. And that's where the coach comes in. He or she sort of tells you that these are the areas you need to work on, and these are the areas that are your weaknesses. So I think a structure itself, a training program, a coaching structure helps you to sort of overcome these issues and peak at the right time, isn't it?
Definitely, yes. So if you put things in the hands of the coach and then trust them and trust yourself to do the work at the right intensity and at the right times, then I think things should, in theory, follow from there. Yeah. But obviously now we're in a period where we don't have any racing planned, so it's actually been quite a good opportunity to work on weaknesses and build up in areas which you can't always do when you're trying to get ready for a race.
Yeah. So how many coaches do you work with? And when I say coaches, I mean coaches and your support structure for recovery and nutrition and all of those things put together.
Well, I've got one coach who ultimately sets my whole program, and then right now I'm swimming with a squad. So we have several coaches with the squad, and then and so they can pick up on technique. I think it's really important to have a good swim coach too, because the swim is so technical, especially if you're just starting. And as a non-swimmer myself, i.e. coming from a non-swimming background, I think if you can learn the correct ways from the start, it will really help you moving forwards.
Yeah. There's a myth around swimming, which is that if you are a certain age, you cannot learn swimming. You can learn swimming only at a younger age and become better at it. Do you agree to that statement, or is it completely false?
Well, if I agreed with that statement, I would probably not. There would be no point in me going to the pool right now, in theory. So I would like to think that's not true, because otherwise, learning to swim at a later age, because I only started swimming when I was, in my 20s. Whereas a lot of the people who I might be competing against have been swimming since they were, say, 8 or 9. I think that it is possible to learn something at any age.
Yeah.
But it might just be a bit harder, or you might have to go about it in a different way, and that's no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's never too late to learn anything, I think.
That's what I'm gonna sum up, guys listening or viewing this show. Remember that there is no age to learn. Whenever you're trying to apply or learn new skills, there's no age. So if you continue to give those excuses about your particular age, gender, demographics, or any such excuses that you tell or feed your mind, that's not going to help your case. The first thing about learning new skills is letting your mind free of the biases that you have. If a pro athlete like Natasha subscribes to this kind of thought process, then I'm sure entry-level athletes, amateurs should be able to learn any new skill. Right, Natasha?
Yeah, I think you've always got to be open to learning, because there's so much out there which can still be learned. There's so much scope in any sport. So you've got to be open-minded and just look forward to getting it wrong and improving. Basically, it's all about trial and error and improvement. So don't be worried if you're getting things wrong at the start, because it's all part of the learning process. I still find I'm making silly mistakes all the time, but it's great because then I can identify them and then learn and not do them again, hopefully.
That's just you being humble. I believe you're being a pro and still wanting the hunger to learn and to improve every day is the stuff of legends, the stuff of pros. That's how people become better.
Thank you. Thanks. Well, I guess there's no limit to what you can achieve. So if you think you've done everything and you think you've learned everything, that's when you sort of close yourself off to learning. But if you stay open-minded and fairly fresh and enthusiastic, then I think you're almost like a sponge and should soak it all up.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Natasha, moving to the second most important part of the conversation is women in triathlon. And I would like to get your views on how women in triathlon or women in general can aspire to become a triathlete or a marathoner, and how do they start?
Well, I think if a woman has never dabbled in endurance sports before, it probably is quite a big change in lifestyle, and it's a big stress on the body too. So I would suggest building up really slowly, maybe starting off with like a couple of 5K events, and maybe finding some good training partners, whether it be friends of theirs who might like to do the same thing, so they can share the journey with them, or even if they ask their husband or partner to join them and be part of the process, then they can share the experiences and the highs and lows, and also learn from each other, and also have someone who they're slightly accountable to, and who will give them that perspective when things aren't always feeling amazing, because that's the nature of training. You're not going to feel good every day, but if you think of the bigger picture and keep that bigger goal in mind, then you're happy to sort of go through the roller coaster of the journey.
I
would suggest starting off with baby steps, basically, just a couple of local events or short distance events, and then taking things from there, rather than suddenly going and signing up for like a marathon or an Ironman, and after not having ever ridden a bike, for example.
Yeah, I think that's a valid point, that start small, start out by getting into one sport first. For most people, it's usually running, because that's the easiest, most accessible sport that you can start with. And then, like Natasha says, that start with 5K, 10K events, and then, gradually keep graduating to higher distances, invest in other sports as well. Natasha, I've seen that there are some preconceived notions in societies or women in general, that these are sports which are load-bearing activities, which are time investing in financially slightly more expensive sports. So there is a hindrance for women to get started in the sport. What do you have to say to motivate these women, and how can we burst some of these myths?
Oh, that's a shame to hear that finances are preventing some women from entering sport generally. But I think running is probably one of the simplest sports in that respect, as long as you don't overdo it. All you need, literally, what I used to love about it was all you need is like an old t-shirt, some shorts, and some good shoes. So not old shoes, but the rest of it can be old. You don't need anything fancy. Cycling is another ball game. It is a bit more expensive, but at entry level, I mean, my first bike was bought for me by a friend at university, and it was a £50 steel bike with the gears like on the frame, and brakes that didn't work. And I think I did my first ever triathlon on that, and it served me really well while I was at university, and made it really, really fun just to ride and build up from there. You don't need fancy gear when you're starting off. In fact, it's not as fun because you don't really have anything to look forward to when you start improving.
Yeah, that's right.
So don't be put off by potential like barriers relating to finances. I would say get yourself a good pair of shoes. An old bike is better than no bike, as long as you keep it clean and look after the chain. That's probably better than getting a really fancy bike and not looking after it. And then swimming wise, again, actually all you need for that is a pool or access to a pool. So swimming is not an expensive sport at all. So actually it's fairly cost effective, and the investment in your health in the long term is going to save you money and probably add years to your life.
Absolutely. I mean, you've the way you've explained is it actually feels like this sport is almost free. And guys,
it's great.
Yeah, it's not about the equipment. It's not about the fancy. I will not name any particular brands and all, but it's not about the most expensive Shimanos and God knows what all the most expensive shoes. It's just about starting out. Just start your journey from a 5K and see where it takes you.
Exactly. And now is actually a really good time to start when there isn't the pressure of having races to work towards, because you can just try the odd bike ride, and it doesn't have to be structured, and it doesn't have to be at a particular pace or a particular time. You can just go out and try and experiment with things in training without the pressure of an event to work towards, and then you'll kind of truly connect with the sport.
That's a good way to put it. Natasha, I want you to list down the advantages, the benefits of women in triathlons and marathons. Why should women get into triathlons and marathons? Like, why should they do it? What are the advantages?
Well, for me, I guess it's shaped my life, sport, since I was at university. And at the start, what really got me into it was the fact that I just met some amazing people. And so that's probably the biggest thing you can get from sport, just the lessons you can learn from other people, and the experiences you can have with other people, and just the fun that you can have with other people through doing sport. So the combination of endorphins plus nice people, you just can't go wrong with it. So that's a big important factor for women and for anyone taking up sport, actually, for general health, mental health, and physical health too. So I think it's important that women have support within the community in all shapes and forms, and I think exercise and health is a big thing for women, and they can gain that through community sport if they're just starting out. Obviously, other advantages when you start to get more competitive, you start to reap the rewards of improvement. So obviously there's massive gains that you can experience there. But ultimately, it's just, you've got to do it because you love it. If you're doing a sport and you're not enjoying it, find another sport that you do enjoy. Because I used to personal train, and I would always say to people that if they're coming to the gym and they're not enjoying it and they're hating every minute of it, they're not doing the right things there. Because there's some sport that each individual will enjoy. They just haven't found the right one. It's like reading. I mean, some people might say they hate reading, but there's a book out there which they will enjoy. They just haven't found the book that they enjoy. So the same applies to sports. So don't keep doing something that you're not enjoying. Exercise doesn't have to be a chore. Sport doesn't have to be a chore. There'll be days when it's tough, but you've got to enjoy that rewarding challenge of it. So most important thing is find a sport that you enjoy, and the rest tends to follow.
Yeah, you've summed it up quite well, Natasha. What sports does to you is it changes you not only physiologically but also mentally. The learnings that you get out of it on a just on a daily basis, it makes your metabolism so much better. It gives you so much more energy, and you're able to perform so much better on your professional and personal life as well. All these in our generation, I've seen is that there is a barrage of social media. There is you keep seeing people, achieving great things on Instagram and posting pictures from all over the world. These are thoughts which just go away because you are so involved in your own training, your own objectives. You're becoming a better person yourself, and when you're doing that, the life just becomes even more meaningful. And I think it's just get into any sports. It could be marathons, it could be triathlons, it could be just like Natasha just said, find your sport and just go after it. This is something that becomes, like for me, running is my anchor. Whenever there is some really bad shit happening in my life, so much stress, things not going well or things going extremely well, it's the running, like a 10K, 20K that just brings me back, like keeps me grounded. So find your sport, find your anchor, and then go after it.
Definitely. Yes, yeah. And you'll meet so many like-minded people along the way. It will just be really exciting and a really wonderful experience.
Yeah, I mean, just the other day I was chatting up with Ryan, and he was telling me that it's because of pursuing these kind of goals that you get to meet such motivated individuals from across the world, because then you have something to share along with other people as well, right?
Yes, yeah, definitely. I mean, by just taking up sport, you open so many doors in life. So there's no reason not to, I feel. And if I mean, some people might be worried about taking up sport because they might have had previous injuries or they might have health issues. But if they seek the right advice and pursue sport at the correct intensity for where they're at that given point in time, they'll soon start to feel the benefits and the mental as well as physical benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. Natasha, you've been so generous with your answers and sharing motivational stories as well as promoting women in tri. We have reached to the last section of our conversation. This section is called as the rapid fire round. Now, I would be asking you many questions one after the other. You would only have 3 to 5 seconds to answer each one of them. No thinking, no second guessing. You just have to keep answering. All right.
Okay, whatever comes out then. Okay, go for it.
I'll ask you once more. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay, let me just take my phone and I will have questions for you. Ready, Natasha?
Yes, yep. Ready as I'll ever be.
In order of preferences, which are your favorite sports? Swim, bike, run, track and field, or strength and conditioning? In order of preference.
Swim, bike, run at the top.
Okay.
All the same.
Which is your favorite, like out of all of them?
It always used to be the run, but actually I've started to enjoy the others just as much now. So I think that's something that people can take from this. Don't always just do the one you prefer the most, because you'll end up getting worse at the others and liking them less. So try and like them all the same, or learn to love them all the same.
Awesome. Second question, what do you like more, pool swim or open water swim, and why?
Depends on the day, but racing, definitely open water. Racing in the pool, I'm useless at, but racing in the open water, I seem to be a bit better at. I love the open water because I just love being in nature and love being in the salt water. And but I love the pool for training too. I love the pure honesty that the pool brings. I love the painful early starts, and I love the not making the times or reaching the wall and feeling the lactic acid. And I mean, I love the pool. The pool is painful. The open water is beautiful and peaceful, but they're both good for different reasons.
That you're in love with open waters.
Yes.
Next question. What are some of your favorite foods or snacks while you're racing or practicing?
Well, my races tend to be a bit shorter, so I don't need to eat the amount, say, you would in an Ironman during a race. But I like to just go for simple stuff like the Cliff Bar chews. They're pretty easy to digest, and you kind of don't really notice that you're eating anything, which is ideal.
Okay. Do you have any snacks or anything like peanuts or bananas or something like that?
During training? So it tends to just be like sports products or bananas or something like that, or dates. Yeah.
Okay.
Simple, easy stuff to digest. Nothing fancy.
Okay, awesome. You've traveled across the world, many countries. You have dual citizenship as well. What are your most favorite locations to race?
Tricky one. I guess I always like racing in new places. And yeah, I've raced in Japan a couple of times and met some really lovely people over there. So that's been a pretty cool experience. So yeah, that's a benefit to the sport, just being able to travel and race and see and experience new cultures.
Yeah, where in Japan? Which location?
Osaka was one of the locations I went to. It was pretty amazing.
Okay, nice. Okay. What are your travel hacks when you're traveling for races? Like especially for your bike?
For the bike, you've just got to make sure that you know how to do everything yourself, because you can't rely on other people when you're traveling and racing. Like you don't want to be getting there and having mechanical issues and then having to find a bike shop when you can't speak the language and you don't know how to find a bike shop anyway. So you want to learn to do everything yourself, basically, so that if you have a problem, you're not going to be running around in the days before the race trying to fix it. So my advice with the bike is learn how to pack and unpack your bike yourself. And then if you do have any serious problems, obviously seek help, because you don't want to have a mechanical on the day. But the basic stuff, learn how to do it yourself. Yeah,
that's an important tip. I've suffered it a couple of times and I learned my lessons, and then it's just, you have to do it with your own bare hands. There's just no two ways.
Definitely.
Okay, next question. You're on multiple social media platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Which is your most favorite, and why?
Probably YouTube, because there's so much information out there, and you can. It's not just like dabbling and stuff really quickly. Like you can actually get to grips with things and really engage with topics or experiences. So whether it be for 5 minutes or 2 hours, there's some really informative stuff out there.
I'm so glad I started my YouTube channel. It was, I think, overdue. All pro athletes like you, or really global fitness superstars are into YouTube. Like none of them really like Instagram or any other platforms. They say that YouTube obviously helps them in getting to learn and deep dive into topics.
Yeah, I mean, every platform's good for something, but I think my personal favorite is probably YouTube. I mean, you can watch races on there. You can see some great like technique videos. It's probably the most useful, I'd say.
Got it. What are your deepest fears, and what are you scared of?
Oh, good question. I'm not sure actually. I don't have any phobias or anything like that. Like any little sort of fears that are slightly irrational in that sense. But we've all got our fears, I think, psychologically.
Don't give me diplomatic answers.
Okay. Well, I don't know what mine would be, but there will be quite a lot. There will be quite a lot deep down. So I think I have to do some meditation or something and then get back to you with that one.
Okay, I'm so glad this question made you uncomfortable.
Yeah, answering those questions, that's what I'm afraid of. No, I'm joking.
Fire, you're making the fire douse. What are your favorite sports shoes brands and apparel brands like Nike, Adidas, Reebok, Hoka?
Well, right now, running-wise, I'm wearing Mizuno's, which is kind of strange because when I first started running, I used to always wear Mizuno's, and then went off at a tangent, tried Asics. Went through Asics for a while, and then Nike, and now I've kind of gone full circle back to Mizuno. So that's kind of nice, actually.
Question: what's your favorite watch for training?
Oh, watch. I like to keep it simple. I don't really care what watch I wear. I think that you can get a bit distracted with the data sometimes, so it's refreshing just to see how the body feels rather than see how the watch thinks the body feels.
Okay. Last two questions. What is your favorite bike brand, and given a chance, which bike would you want to get for yourself for future?
Ooh, tricky one. Right now I'm riding an Anatomic, which is not like a major bike brand, but it's more of like a, I guess, niche brand. But if I were to get a bike early next year, or a new bike, I might get a Giant.
Giant people, are you listening? Please reach out to Natasha.
It was recommended to me, so that might be on the cards for next year. We shall see.
I'll put our Instagram link on the show notes and they can DM you. Giant people.
Okay. Thank you.
Last, what do you prefer more, morning training or evening training? More.
Lunchtime. Probably morning. Morning, yeah. Morning or like middle of the day, yeah.
Okay. Extended question: black coffee or regular coffee?
Black coffee.
Awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Natasha. You were amazing. A couple of questions made you uncomfortable. I'm very glad that happened.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in, agreeing to do this today, and sharing your amazing insights as well as training motivation for all people listening. People who, if you're listening, you have any last parting shots, parting words?
Well, if you have any questions, pop them in the comments or ask me or Nishant. Or if you're just interested in getting into the sport, don't hesitate to get in contact, because we'd love to share the sport with you and share any sport with you. So if you're just looking to start out and need pointing in the right direction, then yeah, don't hesitate to ask.
Awesome. What are your Instagram links, or how do people reach you? Any particular platform?
You can send me a DM on Instagram. My account is Natasha Poole 13. So I'm sure Nishant will put that in the show notes. And feel free to get in touch.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Natasha. It was great having you on Trifantry Chronicles. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Keep watching as I keep bringing global superstars, fitness stars for your motivations and all questions regarding marathons and triathlon. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Train, endure, conquer.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to my channel, Trifantry, click on the bell icon, and I will see you in the next video. Train, endure, conquer.